Hey everyone, and welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking a really practical, honestly absolutely crucial topic that applies to every single person driving on Victoria's roads, and that's the tow truck industry. Look, it's one of those things we basically only ever deal with on our absolute worst days, right? Which means we usually go into it completely blind. So today we are going to figure out exactly what the rules are, what we should really be paying, and how to make sure we're protecting ourselves. So picture this for a second. You're cruising down the Monash Freeway right in the middle of peak hour. Or maybe you've just had a little bingle on a really quiet street out in Geelong. Suddenly you hear it, that dreaded clunk. Your car just completely stops, you're blocking traffic, the immediate stress just hits you like a ton of bricks. In that exact moment of panic, who do you actually call? And maybe more importantly, how do you know for sure you aren't about to get completely taken advantage of by the person who shows up to tow your car? You know, it's pretty easy to assume that the towing industry is just the Wild West, operating completely unchecked. But the surprising reality, well, especially here in Victoria, is that it's actually governed by this incredibly dense, strict government bureaucracy. The accident towing services regulations are legally binding. They carry the full, literal weight of the state. The government has actually put some really serious rules in place to manage exactly what happens on the side of the road. Okay, here's our roadmap for today. We're going to cover 1. The tow truck stigma, 2. Victoria's strict towing laws, 3. The accident allocation roster, 4. Breaking down towing costs, and 5. Protecting your consumer rights.
All right, part 1, the tow truck stigma. Let's demystify the Wild West of towing.
To kick things off, we really have to address the elephant in the room, the industry's mixed reputation. Pretty much every driver has either experienced this themselves or heard a horror story from a mate. People getting slugged with these just ridiculous release charges to get their own car back. Sneaky hidden fees that randomly pop up on the invoice that were literally never discussed. We've all seen vehicles being towed unsafely on their wheels, just dragging and messing up the car even more. Or honestly, even worse, getting totally stranded because an operator towed your car, immediately closed their yard for the night, and then slapped you with massive after-hours storage fees. This exact stigma is exactly why understanding the regulations is so crucial for your wallet.
Which brings us to part 2, Victoria's strict towing laws, bureaucracy at work.
So to combat those exact horror stories, Victoria rolled out a hyper-specific set of rules. For a truck to even operate legally, it's got to have a minimum load capacity of 1.25 tons and dual rear tires. But they're also legally required to carry some very specific gear. We're talking exactly a 4.5-liter foam or 4.5-kilo dry chemical fire extinguisher. And this next one is wild. They are legally mandated to carry a broom, a shovel, and a heavy-duty bin. Why? Because the law actually dictates that the tow truck driver has to sweep up the accident glass and debris before they leave the scene. They also need flashing yellow lights visible from 200 meters away, plus a connected light board for the back of your car. But hey, the regulations don't stop at the equipment. Before a truck moves your car even an inch, the driver is legally bound to hand you an authority to tow form. And this isn't just some random scrap of paper. By law, it's got to come from a bound book that is sequentially numbered, to stop fraud. It has to have clear tax invoice details and contact info. But honestly, what's just as important is what the law says it absolutely must not have. It's illegal for these forms to have outside advertising or irrelevant images on them. The government basically wants this form to be a clear, unambiguous contract with no sneaky fine print or distractions.
Moving on to part 3, the accident allocation roster. Who shows up and why?
So how does a specific truck actually end up at your crash? You might think they're all just listening to police scanners and racing each other to the scene, right? Well, not anymore. Victoria uses a strict accident allocation roster for controlled areas. Here's the actual timeline. First, a crash gets reported and a request goes to a centralized allocation officer for that area. Second, that officer checks the official roster and authorizes the very next licensed truck on the list. And third, that specific authorized truck, and literally only that truck, must attend the scene. This totally eliminates that super dangerous practice of drivers racing to accidents just to fight over clients. And the magic number here? 30. Once a driver is authorized by the allocation officer, they have a legally mandated 30 minutes to get to your accident scene. If they can't make it in 30 minutes, they're legally required to notify the allocation body right away so another truck can be dispatched. Basically, you're never supposed to just be left waiting endlessly on the side of a dangerous highway. All right, part 4, breaking down towing costs. Let's talk about what you should actually be paying.
Looking at real-world 2024 data across Melbourne's leading towing companies, it's pretty clear that distance is the main thing dictating your base rate. For a standard local tow, so under 10 kilometers, you're looking at a base of about $150. Now, if you need to be towed across the suburbs, say 10 to 50 kilometers, that jumps to around $300. And for a long-distance haul, over 50 kilometers, expect a base of $450 or more, which usually calculates out to roughly $3 to $4 for every extra kilometer. I really want to hammer this $150 figure home. Anchor this number in your brain right now. If you've got a standard, short-distance weekday tow for a regular sedan, this is your benchmark. So if a driver rocks up and tries to quote you $500 to move your Honda Civic 3 streets over on a Tuesday afternoon, you instantly know something is very, very wrong. But look, life doesn't always happen on a sunny Tuesday afternoon in a tiny little hatchback, and that's where the variables start stacking up. Driving a heavy SUV, a 4WD, or a commercial van, expect a 20 to 30% bump on that base rate, because they need heavier flatbeds and way more secure tie-downs. Breakdown after hours, overnight, or on a weekend? Yep, expect a $50 to $100 surcharge. So if you crash a heavy 4WD at 2 a.m. on a Saturday night, the specialized equipment and that overnight labor are definitely but legitimately going to increase your bill.
But hey, here's a little bit of a silver lining for you. Despite the stress of paying for a tow, Melbourne actually ranks as the 3rd lowest Australian city for base towing costs. Once you get past that initial minimum distance, it averages out to around $3.50 per kilometer, which is noticeably cheaper than Sydney, where it sits up around $4.10 per kilometer. So, it could absolutely be worse. Finally, Part 5, protecting your consumer rights. Let's get into some actionable tips.
So how do we take all of this and actually use it to protect ourselves? Well, when you're arranging a tow, definitely do not make these common mistakes. Number 1, always ask if they operate 24/7. If they don't, they might just tow your car to their yard, lock the gates, and boom, hit you with massive overnight storage fees. 2, never let them hook up your car before you confirm the absolute total quote, call-out fees and weekend surcharges included. 3, double-check that their surface area actually covers where your mechanic is so you aren't paying for 2 separate tows. And finally, always check with your insurance company. They have lists of vetted providers who are actually held accountable.
Honestly, if you take absolutely nothing else away from this explainer today, please remember this direct quote from the Victorian Towing Regulations. The owner of the vehicle must be provided with the opportunity to make payment by way of cash, check, electronic funds transfer, credit, or debit card. The law is explicitly on your side here. It is your legal right to pay via card or transfer. If an operator is trying to intimidate you into some shady cash-only situation or suddenly claims their card machine is magically broken, they are actively violating the law. So, I'm going to leave you with this to think about. The next time you hear that dreaded clunk on the highway and you're pulled over on the shoulder with your hazard lights blinking, are you going to be just another victim of circumstance, or are you going to be an empowered driver who knows the laws, knows the costs, and knows exactly how to demand your rights? Keep these tips in your back pocket and you will always be in the driver's seat. Thanks so much for joining me for this explainer, and hey, stay safe out there on the roads.